Invite the first panelist, Mr. Sandeep Mehra. Please, sir. Round of applause. Post-lunch session, very heavy. Sir. The second panelist, Mr. Ankit Goenka, please. Again, the applause continues. Thank you. Do we have Mr. Hakim in the room? Mr. Hakim. Perfect. We can be seated, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. I welcome you all on this lovely event hosted by DSCI. Specific kudos to Mr. Vinayak and Team DSCI for organizing such a wonderful event, bringing everybody, all the industry experts into one single umbrella. The point here is not that we look for solutions, but at least we discuss the problems, we take key takeaways, and then deliberate further on that. That's the overall agenda on this. Before we get into the discussion, I request the panelists to introduce themselves. First of all, Mr. Mehra, over to you, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sandeep Mehra. Currently, I'm working with Yes Bank as Chief of Vigilance. I started my career with law enforcement with the Central Bureau of Investigation. I worked with them for around 22 years. Then I moved to the corporate sector, starting with my career with the corporate career with the Royal Bank of Scotland, which is now known as NatWest Bank. Moved to Citibank, and presently I'm working with Yes Bank.
Thank you so much, Mehra sir. We are glad you're here. Now, Mr. Ankit Goenka, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ankit Goenka. I'm currently heading customer experience for Bajaj Allianz General Insurance Company. Overall, around 21 odd years of experience in the industry. I started my career with a company called G Capital, where I've done multiple roles, and then moved on to a company called BillDesk, where I was heading their entire operations and risk management. And from there, I came to Bajaj Allianz General Insurance.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hakim.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Hakimuddin Wadlawala. I represent Akila AI as a founder, which is a threat management platform. From a career standpoint, I've been into both the sides of the table. I've been a CISO and a security risk practitioner on the customer side, and been on this side for almost 7 years now, and now helping the CISOs and cybersecurity practitioner to help them overcome one of the topic is on the fraud piece for their organization. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hakim. So let's open here the discussion in terms of what fraud stands for, what fraud management is, how the digital journey from a customer standpoint has evolved, and also we'll touch base some elements on the social engineering fraud that is keeping a buzz right now. Before I get into that, a quick kind of introduction about me. So my full name is Dinesh Purushottaman. I have over 22 years of experience. Started my career with IT, then moved into information security, then into legal, corporate security, and finally forensics. So it's a roller coaster ride, which I'm still enjoying. In terms of fraud, what do we mean exactly by fraud? So fraud in a simple terms means act of cheating. But when we look into a legal term, it means that the art of deception and gaining unlawful financial loss. Couple of aspects that fraud as an element has brought, and it has involved constantly into that. One of the critical angle is a fraud triangle, which Mr. Donald in the 1970s had discovered. The fraud triangle that we called about. It is the motivation, the rationalization, and the challenges. And to talk more about that in terms of how the digital journey in fraud has emerged, I will request Mr. Mehra to share some insights on that. Mr. Mehra.
Thanks, Dinesh. Before I start, I just want to insist upon a thing. Can somebody tell me that actually which is the IPC section which describes fraud? I know the question is tricky because there is no section, honestly. If you see the entire IPC, there is no section called as fraud. We have a section on cheating, criminal breach of trust, forgery or forgery for the purpose of cheating. So these are the things actually which combinedly actually which if we take, this describes as fraud. As Dinesh has rightly pointed out, it is the deceit. It is deceit with an intention to cheat. For any offense, the intention has to be proved by the law enforcement authorities. Only then you can say that the person was involved in a criminal offense. So this way, actually, if we take the entire thing in totality, we are able to describe the term as fraud. Now, as I earlier said, actually, I have around 37 years of experience with the law enforcement, 22 years with law enforcement and 15 years with the corporates. So that this entire, journey has been, I started actually investigating frauds when there was no digital network at all. So the physical payments used to be there, physical form of cheating used to be there. To the present scenario where we are fighting the menace of digital frauds, digital payment frauds in fact. So the journey has been really a roller coaster ride as to be put. So, I mean, I think this entire discussion would be based around that only.
Thank you. The other element that we want to touch base is on the fraud management piece. Now, typically fraud management operates off detecting a particular fraud to raise a red flag at the right time and to investigate to ensure the corrective measures are conducted. So the three forms that we talk about is process of identification, mitigation, and investigation. What are the benefits of the fraud management? Typical fraud management is reduced financial loss, enhanced customer trust, which goes in the longer way. And to talk in more about this, I'll invite Mr. Ankit to share some thoughts on this.
Well, thanks, Dinesh, for that question. And I would like to bring the customer angle here when you talk about the fraud management. Because typically in the quest of, as you said, finding out or detecting the fraud, we kind of go on the wrong side of the right customer. Right? And that basically disturbs that entire, experience of that customer. And hence the entire fraud management needs to be stitched out, pretty well. Else you'll just have, a lot of alerts. Right, and then somebody's going to investigate that, and the right customer actually gets agitated, right? And in the quest of doing that, typically you are incurring more cost, right? And the same cost actually you can incur in detecting the right one, right? Just to share one example, long back in motor insurance, okay? If there was a claim. Right. The customer used to go to the workshop, file a claim. A physical surveyor will go investigate, right? And in case there is something, the fraud, detection comes in. Now, pretty lengthy, tedious, and each and everybody is going through that, same process. Now, what we did is use of technology and actually digitizing the customer journey. We created a model called motor on-the-spot settlement. Okay. Now, we were in the business of paying claims for the last 2 decades. Right, and all the AI technology and everything was growing. So what we did, we just put all that data onto a data lake, provided our experts' wisdom to it, created the AI model. From a customer standpoint, we said that in case there is a claim, you just need to click photographs, a video, upload it. Now, based on the customer data that we have got at this particular instance and our experience in the past, coupled with various third-party data that we were fetching, we could establish, okay, this is a genuine claim or not. Right? That's the first thing. And then for all the genuine claims, you immediately pay. You have the Indian payment systems, use of the UPI, IMPS and all. You simply just transfer the money to the customer's account. So things which were happening in 30 days approximately, today in less than 10 minutes, a claim up to around 30,000 odd rupees can be settled on the spot without really impacting the experience of the customer. Actually is taking the experience to the next level, and at the same time not compromising on the fraud element part of it. Is actually much more vigilant, I would say, and the accuracies level are much higher.
Understood. On that same aspect, Mr. Ankit, how do you do an outlier analysis in terms of first identifying the behavior of a particular driver? I still remember 3 to 4 years back when I had taken insurance from a particular bank, private sector bank. They used to give us a device which you to plug it in the OBD of the car, and that would tend if my handbrake is on or not, how many times I'm clutching, over speeding, over idling. Does this also algorithm apply over here?
It does. It does. And when you say about all this, we need to understand the entire ecosystem of this fraud. Okay? And it obviously changes from an industry to industry. For example, when you talk about the real, the banking frauds, the consumer is the victim in a way, right? Right? So the entire piece and the thought process changes. The fraud is fraud, right? At the end of the day, right? But who's the real victim, right? And from that standpoint, you kind of then build your entire ecosystem, to actually detect, investigate, and take those preventive measures. You talked about that device, telematics device, in a motor car. Obviously that helps, right? The entire IoT technology helps you to, get the right data, right? And while everybody is getting the data, the right use of that data, which will actually benefit you and your customer, linking to my first point that in the quest of, detecting a fraud, I would not want to go on the wrong side of the right customer, right? So you need to use that data with your true wisdom, right? And then create that entire ecosystem to go ahead and, fight this battle of fraud management, right? And build your various journeys, be it digital, be it manual or phygital, combination of both. But there is no right or wrong answer, frankly speaking here. Some things which may work for an insurance company may not definitely work for a bank, right? Or vice versa, right? So based on your customer base, your patterns, your data, the fraud, element that you are seeing in your organization or your company, you need to take those calls. For example, health insurance, right? Now, typically, over these years, the entire industry has seen a very clear pattern that health insurance frauds are higher when the customer is not taking the cashless and going for the reimbursement, right? There the fraud element, multifolds. So as an industry, what we did? As an industry, we said, now it is cashless for all. There is the concept of the network hospital in a health insurance does not exist anymore. Now, a customer who's, let's say, going to a hospital, and if the insurance company say that you don't worry, we'll take care of the expenses, right? It will be a cashless. Now, if the customer is saying, no, I want to spend everything from my pocket, I'll ensure that I'll take all the bills, all the reports, I'll make sure everything is in order, right? Then I'll make a bunch, and I'll courier it to you or give it to your branch, or maybe upload, the scan images onto your app. I will take all that pain, and then you can, on your own will, you can reimburse that money. Oh, that's a big question mark, right? Which customer would really want to do that, right? And we saw, a great dip in the, frauds, right? Now that also gave us that opportunity, right, to invest, right, that same piece into the right areas, right, without actually, increasing the cost, right? So it's a win-win for everyone.
Absolutely, it does. And basis on the good behavior pattern, the insurance company was also aggressive in terms of giving me discounts, stating that yes, you are a good driver. There's no specific accident. The NCB is different, but they also gave me a discount, which was really appreciated. Right. On the other aspect, since we're talking about technology, social engineering fraud, which has seen leaps and bounds, and of late we are seeing a lot of things happening onto that. Generally, in a social engineering fraud, what happens is the threat actor does not need to dwell into a system or a device, but what gets attacked or compromised is a human. Now, to talk more into that, I have Mr. Hakeem. Hakeem, if you can just share some insights on how you identity protection, social engineering frauds, if you can share some examples as well.
Sure, thank you so much. So, one of the discussion that I could, pull out few points from, both of my fellow panelists, right? typically in any fraud, the victim is the one which may differ in the types of fraud that is happening across, right? On the banking side, the victim is a user. On the insurance side, the victim is an insurance company. But other area which Goenka sir touched upon was the data. The data touch point was very important for them to actually, run over a different AIs and ML and different logic and say that this is how a user is, and this is how a kind of a user behavioral thing that they would make a pattern across about, right? But when we talk about social engineering, we are still talking about the data, right? So here the interesting piece is that in days that have gone by, there were adware or information gathering malwares that were typically being hooked up to the websites or many other places to gather the information from a user standpoint or from a victim standpoint. But over a period of time, the social engineering attacks have developed so widely that now no longer a person needs to know what's your name. No longer a person needs to know what's email address. So while Dinesh also wanted me to put across a example out there, and the reason I am trying to show or discuss about the victim, the data, and a very minimalistic data that I'm talking about, one of the things that I'm sure everybody in this room cannot live without, if they don't have it in their hand, will be their phones, right? And I'm telling you that if you lose your phone to somebody who has an access to your phone, definitely a number of UPI transactions can happen. The SMS will come and the login OTP pop up for notification, MFA, and all this thing is linked to your mobile number. So the technology kept on growing, and then eventually the target data has reduced so minimalistic that now it's no longer I am worried about that what's your name, what's your email address, where do you stay. I don't care about all that thing. All that I'm interested is that how do I get access to your phone number. And the moment I get an access to the phone number, I am telling you, and this is one of the scenarios that I'm going to discuss once I complete this piece, that a person will end up losing good amount of money and the social presence on the internet. And I'm sure majority of us will agree here. And there are a lot of series of Netflix and all this thing is available where, there was a pattern also shown in those series that initially the attacks or the social engineering attacks were typically linked to the phishing attacks, where somebody calls you and then they bait you into some kind of a story and then you end up paying the money. But that is no longer required. It's because even if you see those documentaries out there, it's very predominantly, I'm just referring to the documentaries to make it more relativity, the way I'm trying to explain it to you guys, that the users have now got more mature about understanding that this kind of calls are typically not right, and they should not be giving this information and details about. So now what, right? And this is one of the example that I've seen in my, friend that I sit across. There was a message that lands up to the person, and I'm giving an example on that particular thing, which says that there is a courier that has come down from a government of India, and it is an ITR document. Please call on this number. This is exactly what it is. And I'm telling you, if you look at that message, you will feel that there is nothing wrong on calling on this number. But what has happened is, there were *21*, and then the number hash that was given under that SMS. Which means, the moment you call that number, you are not calling the number. You are configuring auto call forwarding to somebody else from that number. So, and this has actually happened to a person who is an accounts guy in that particular company. Just imagine there is millions of money that is kept in the company account, and the OTP is received on that person's phone number. And now the option is you don't need a SMS, you can have a call-based verification also. So this is as simple as this. So the way social engineering and the fraud, and fraud is a very wide subject, right? So we cannot cover the complete fraud into this discussion, but very particularly looking at the digital fraud, and also under digital fraud, looking at only under the social engineering fraud. The approach, the way the frauds are happening, has reduced the involvement of a victim so less, and using this kind of shortcuts that makes the life simpler for the hacker, that is the person ends up losing a lot of money or value on the internet and so on and so forth. So if you look at that, one of the things that I have seen in the journey where I was heading a security or being a CISO and then being on this side, the learning curve is the major aspect of everything, right? So it's not what's happening, and this is going to evolve, right? So today, when a lot of people would come to know that calling up on *21* and then the number, of course, this is not right. And then, of course, the service provider and the regulatories will take some steps to avoid this kind of call happening without notification or some kind of an authentication. The attackers would also try and create some kind of a bypass to do, the different types of ways to get hold of the information. And in this case, it is just a mobile number. So one of the key aspects that what I see is the awareness or the learning curve that one has to reach, which is reaching, to be very honest. If you see the earlier UPI attack, when UPI was launched and many of such mobile payment app was launched, it was so evident that the spike on the banking fraud was huge. And then over a period of time, it kept on decreasing. Now, it is directly it has a relation to the number of people who are now aware about the pattern and the way that the frauds are happening. So the idea that I'm trying to say is that the way the evolution of an attacks are happening or reaching to the different attackers, the awareness or the way that this has to reach out to more mass and more population and more people is also equivalent important, right? So, of course, there is always a way to stop an attack, but there can't be a 100% way of blocking it. So, the other way of looking at it is the most, I would say, the vulnerable area, which is us as a human. So, the awareness becomes a more critical, aspect of the entire social engineering attack by bringing to how to bring it down. That's what I would add up to.
Sure. Thank you so much. From a threat landscape, if we dwell about how it has changed, the social engineering attack, before initially when it started, it was you had a person who was begging for some help in some or the other way. Now, the fear psychosis has completely come into the picture. Thank you. Okay. So I got a new mic, okay. So the fear psychosis has completely taken over, which has also ensured that now who has to beg is the customer. The recent FedEx, DHL, or the UPS scams is a classic example of that, where the person, as Mr. Hakim was saying, where the person is then required to provide the burden of proof and to testify. Mr. Hakim, what's your take on this recent FedEx scams that is happening? What do you suggest? How to stay prevalent, relevant, and ensure that we are not got trapped into that?
So I'll again hop onto the same piece of awareness. And so I see there are three different parties involved here. One is as an individual, what is our responsibility to act to those kind of emails, messages, phone calls that lands up to us, and that those are being particularly articulated in such a way that we get bait into it. So that's an awareness piece that I just mentioned about. But there are two more aspects that brings me to the discussion. One is the corporate or the organization body, which is being referred here. I'll not take the name, considering it is just going to be recorded out there. So as an organization, of course, there are different ways and means how the information security body or a governance body ensures that there are checks and balances that are kept in such a way that they are more aware about those kind of fraud that are happening in the market that is relating back to them, right? And there are ways and means and solutions out on the internet that helps organization to be a one step ahead of understanding that are there any kind of an attack that are linking back to their brand name, and be a kind of a proactive way, which could also be a kind of a near real-time based approach to avoid those kind of things. Because a majority of cases when I'm also being part of a lot of investigation, and what we see that the time from an incident to happen and the time till the time incident is detected and then mitigated, that duration is so wide that you end up giving a lot of window for a fraudster to perform more attacks to the audiences that they are particularly referring to. And the courier companies that we are talking about, and this has been widely active for so many years now. But even if you look at it, the approach remains the same, but the pattern has changed, right? So the victim, the data, the end goal of transferring the money or losing the some kind of banking transaction, that remains the same, but the approach that they have changed out there. Lastly, what I would say is that from a regulatory point of view, recently we have seen that now there is also a very stringent way of how the SMSs are being released on a mass, right? So earlier there was no such stringent approach where the SMS's content were reviewed and then released. So over a period of time, so because I know that when we perform an ethical phishing attack for our customer to understand their pattern, that how their employees or their team is reacting to this kind of an fraudster, which we do it through our platform. We have seen that now regulatory is also ensuring that each and every statements within the SMSs are granularly validated, and only then this is approved to be going down to the people. So different checks at a different level is required. As I said, right, there is not a single bullet that will end up everything out there, but as a security practitioner, these different checks will help us to overall bring down the probability of an attack that is happening at this point of time, and then further reduce the probability of the number who end up being a victim from an end user point of view.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Mr. Sandeep, now we wanted to know your take on the digital payment journey that India has progressed, and how do you see on it? Is it good? Is it bad? How is it going, sir?
Sure. Thanks, Dinesh. And honestly, I mean, if I look at my career graph, I mean, the earlier days, I mean, the days in the earlier millennium were much better for the law enforcement authorities, because actually whatever the type of frauds were happening, they were leaving a paper trail, they were leaving documents. But at the moment, actually, if I see, I mean, if I go on the digital journey for India, in fact, yesterday, when I was preparing for this, I was surprised to know that the first digital transaction happened in India in the year 1980, when the first credit card was issued by Central Bank of India. Now, after that, in the year 1987, the first ATM was installed in Bombay by HSBC. Then there was a huge gap. In the year 2005, the NEFT started. 2010, IMPS started. But the present situation where we are in is actually it is just like a blast. The UPI payment, UPI when it started in the year 2019, actually from that time onwards, honestly, there was a compulsion. Like we were hearing the last session, at that point in time, because the demonetization was there, COVID was there, so many other things were there, so people were not being able to withdraw the money. So the UPI came to help the entire Indian public. But honestly, the banks were not prepared for that. And till date, we are not prepared. The thing is, actually, I will be sharing some data points with you. When I think most of us would be aware about the I4C portal, that is Indian Cybercrime Coordination Cell, which is under Ministry of Home Affairs, which manages all our digital payment frauds. If I go through their data, their CEO has very recently stated that in the last 3 years, can you imagine actually the amount which the Indian public has lost due to these frauds? Wild guys, this is actually around 10,000 crore rupees. 10,000 crore. I mean, in my entire career, honestly, I have not seen any fraud bigger than this. But most of these frauds are not reported. And what is the success rate for this? In the same statement, actually, the CEO is saying that the recovery for the general public is just 1%. So the 99% of this money, which is around 9,000 crore, has already been lost. 99,000 crore has already been lost, which cannot be recovered. In the recent statement also, the CEO said in the last 4 months, the loss is 1,700 crore. In 4 months, 1,700 crore. So you can imagine actually the kind of money people are losing every day. And although the I4C, the banks are doing every effort to recover the money, but because all these transactions are being made by the public themselves, using their own authentic passwords and OTPs, so no bank is coming forward to make the money good. And legally also, actually, they are not supposed to do that. So this is the situation as of now. I'm hopeful because how the I4C is taking this issue, how the Ministry of Home Affairs is taking the issue, soon we would be in a position to control this entire thing. There have been, weekly or monthly meetings which we are having, they are having with all the bankers to reduce this impact. And I'm hopeful that in the next 6 months or 7 months, actually this would be seeing a better trend.
Thank you, sir. Also continuing to that same question, sir, how has it, from an end user perspective, how do you see that it has impacted them?
Okay, so there are two scenarios to this question. I mean, for the end user perspective, I mean, I still remember the good old banking days, wherein an out-of-station payment used to take 15 days to clear, right? And at the moment, I mean, as on today, it takes 1 to 2 seconds. So, I mean, if you talk about the business, from the business point of view, for the genuine businessman, it has impacted in a very positive manner. Well, there are two things to the story. I mean, in the earlier days also, many of the businessmen, what they used to do, where they were very well aware that the payment is going to take 15 days to clear. So they used to, manage their funds accordingly. But now, because the money is on the same day or within the same minute, so it is going out of their pockets immediately. So this is the positive side for the business. When you see the negative trend, because I think there are so many people who are losing money on a daily basis. Actually, they are not supposed to lose that also. So there are both ways actually it has impacted, negative also and positive also.
And Dinesh, just to add, because I'm a great fan of our Indian payment systems. Okay, I believe that the way the entire regulator and along with NPCI, that the way they have developed the entire payment systems in India over the last few years, it is incredible. If you look at, for example, there was a time when you talk about, credit cards or debit cards, right? People going and giving it to the shopkeeper, right? And then, the transaction happens, right? There is no transaction alert also at that point in time, okay? And if I go back and look at the frauds which used to happen was, the shopkeepers used to take down the entire 16-digit card number, expiry date, and who wants to do the fraud, they will also note down the CVV number, right? And then they will go ahead and do the fraud, right? Now today when we look at UPI and cards on UPI, okay, this entire thing is eliminated, right? Yes, you need to take care of your mobile phone, right? Because if you, as in the earlier session we were talking about the mobile phone, right? That your mobile phone gets lost and you have also in the notes kind of written down your, UPI pin and all those stuff, obviously you're gone, right? But if you take care of that, okay, the basic convenience has increased from a customer standpoint. The fraud element to that extent has been mitigated, right? Yes, there will be fraudsters who will find new ways to, defraud you and do a lot of stuff. But if you really compare past versus today, we have evolved a lot. I can actually say that today Indian payment system is a developed payment system, right? While the country may be developing, but our payment system is developed. That's my belief.
Also on the point of UPI, the jurisdiction aspect and the ramification, France being one of the latest countries who have now started accepted UPI. Do you think that the cases that were already investigated in India had a tough challenge versus now we have crossed the jurisdiction. What's your take on that?
No, definitely this is going to be, a tough job because, for example, NRI accounts also. Now, on NRI accounts also, the UPI is enabled, right? Activated, right? So yes, the jurisdiction will play, a critical role here. And it's going to be a tough time, for all of us to fight this. But I guess this is the right thing to do, right? You can't just limit it, with a fear that somebody will defraud you and somebody will, make bad use of it. That will happen in everything, right? We have to just keep that aside, move ahead, develop, right? And at the same time, keep an eye on that and, build those mitigants around it so that you can control it.
Sure.
So one of the aspect, and I'm along with you on this particular thing, says, see, the entire discussion, what we are evolving around, it ends up to an individual, right, who is actually the one who is, because I'm just referring to the UPI discussion that, sir, you have picked it up. So in spite of regulations and many other things that can come across, I believe the focus on how the user reacts to an kind of an attack and how that person is well equipped. When I say well equipped, it could be in a different way, from an information point of view, from a basic checks point of view. I'm not sure how many of you have seen that when you do a screenshot after you make a payment on a GPay, it says that screenshot is not allowed, something like that sort of thing. So certain, I would say a cumbersome but equivalent friendly controls that enables to have a less probable attack that can take place and a detection in much better way that could help. But as you rightly said, because there is a spike in the number of fraud, we can not stop our platform to go out of India and many other geography. That is continue to grow. And, of course, the regulatory will also have a challenge of understanding. And since I'm sure Indian regulation itself are so overwhelmed by the number of transactions or fraud are there. Just imagine what will happen when we go abroad. But that doesn't mean that we will not go. We'll have to continue to grow there and learn from the existing frauds and make it so robust so that the probability is coming down. That is what I can say.
I'm sorry, actually, if I'm taking much time. I mean, as I said, we are in on a regular meetings with the I4C guys, and ultimately because actually the entire MHA, the entire I4C team belongs to MHA, that is Ministry of Home Affairs, and they are all law enforcement authorities only. I mean, until and unless the bankers engage with them, the InfoSec team engages with them, I mean, they won't be able to know actually what kind of controls we can keep in place. So what I was saying that actually in the next 6-7 months, actually what we are seeing the positive side, because this hit us as a blast. Right now, we are taking the steps to prevent all these things. Now, there are a couple of things actually which we are introducing, like for instance, for each and every transaction, if we can have a location-based control, so that actually the money doesn't go outside India or outside a particular state. So these kind of controls actually we are adding. And then again, we have suggested them that the UPI, the settlement is within minutes. If we can delay by half an hour or 1 hour, so at that point in time, actually, at least there would be some saving. Again, it would be on the same day or within an hour only. But again, there would be some breather because actually the moment the money goes out of the system, it goes in an international account from where actually it cannot be brought back. So these are a few things actually which we have suggested. And I think hopefully we would be implementing them soon.
Sure, that are valid points, sir. Sir, since you also come from a background of law enforcement, can you share the challenges that the law enforcement faces in terms of this aspect and also the challenges faced by the bank? There are two questions, sir.
Sure. So first I'll cover the law enforcement. Law enforcement has improved like anything. Over the last 1.5 year, if I see, since the I4C system is in place, every state police is having a cyber cell. And I'm happy to share that every state police cyber cops are trained enough to deal these kind of investigations. Now it is only the matter of speed. Now we cannot match the speed of the computers. Because ultimately these are humans only who are doing the investigation. But I'm very hopeful that with the given scenarios and everything, with the given suggestions, the police would also improve on the way that they investigate the cases. From the bank, again, the challenges were there at present. I mean, if I see this month's numbers also on the I4C scenario, I4C is basically UPI frauds only. So if I see the I4C scenario, most of the banks, I think approximately 80 to 90% banks are online in responding to the notices and providing the details. Earlier, it used to be hardly 3 or 4 banks which were providing on time. So both ways the systems are improving. Both ways actually we are on the right track. I can assure that we are on the right track. It is only a matter of time actually we would be not completely eradicating this menace, but I mean we would be reducing it to drastically a very small number.
Thank you, sir. A final question before we end the panel discussion to Mr. Hakim. Since you come from both the sides, a corporate and now from running an agency, what are the tools and technologies that you would suggest in terms of detecting this and how to be ensure on this?
So, very good question, and I believe it doesn't have a single answer to it. But there are different ways of how do you look at it when there is a solutions or technology that actually enables the banking or a non-banking organizations to control this in their organization. But let's talk more about on the user point of view, right? So, and to be very honest, I was very happy to hear one of the suggestions that Sir just mentioned about the delay of the payment, right? Now, this delay is intentional delay that could happen, and I'm happy to see that it's a very kind of a suggestion that came out. But going back to what Dinesh has asked, right? We have so many technologies which actually enables and end users to have these basic controls in place that helps them understand the kind of a fraud that they are getting into, right? So, like I mentioned about a phone call that actually forwards something, or there are attacks where unauthenticated apps are downloaded, and then through that, a backdoor is being given to the attacker to gain an access to your mobile, and then the attacks happen. So, along with the awareness, I would say a lot of intelligence that helps the organizations to know that how secure the users are from the information point of view is what I would say. So again, I'm talking from solutions that are enabling that to the end users, which makes them so aware and makes them not just aware by giving them the information about videos and all that thing, but making them go through the real-time attacks that actually are the eye-opener kind of stuff. And those solutions would give an end user and I would say a real, near real-time, feel of an attack and what they would do when they are into that panic state. That is an awareness that I'm talking about, to put them into the situation, make them learn about it, and then educate them, and then drive the entire learning curve. That's what I would say out there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hakim. We are almost overshoot on time, but we'll still take the liberty and try to answer any of the questions if you have. So this is open to you. Any questions that you have for us? No? Thank you so much. I thank the panelists, Mr. Ankit, Mr. Hakim, Mr. Mehra, and it's back to you, Tripti.
Thank you so much, all the panelists. It was a wonderful discussion, and I got certain insights about. I myself is a very person who is very much scared of using digital things. I'm scared that some fraud may not happen with me. But as you told correctly, that awareness, vigilance, and all regulatory reforms are there. We need to ensure all these things. So keeping that in mind, I would again like to thank you with a big round of applause. Thank you so much for being a wonderful panelist, and a big round of applause for wonderful audience who stayed with us. Thank you so much. And Chair, with your permission, I would like to have a big round of applause for the crew also. These are the silent supporters. As in when we need their help, they're always there. But they made such events happen. Thank you so much. And as a token of respect and gratitude, sir, I would request if we can hand over some gifts, small gifts to our panelists. I'll grab this opportunity to give this to the chair.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we have one panel photograph, please?